Nice, solid yay today.
We've been practicing all day.
Despite the lack of sleep for weeks, we are full of energy today.
What is the sleep thing you speak of?
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 256. This is going to be a really fun episode tonight.
Yeah.
Because?
We're getting up there. I was like, because there's a lot of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons.
Why.
Well, one, our guest.
Two, we're getting up there.
We're getting up there. I'm very excited about tonight's show because we love to feature our community members. And tonight we get to feature one talking all about her adventures running some pretty stout races in a very tight time frame. Our guest, Liz McHutcheon, has been a longtime viewer, longtime supporter, and she decided to take it upon herself to run 4 pretty difficult races in the span of about 6 weeks. Just kind of a cool project to take on herself. And we were inspired by this because it's something that any one of us can do. It doesn't matter if you're an elite or mid-pack or back the packer. There's always the opportunity to take on and set challenges for yourself that might seem outlandish at first, but might inspire others. And in this case, Liz is inspiring both Kim and myself. It's just such a cool project to run the Chuckanut 50K, Lake Sonoma 50 miler, Mendocino 50K, and then Tiger Claw, all within a 6-week period. It's a big undertaking. She's in the midst of it now. She's 3 races down, 1 race to go.
Yep.
And we're going to talk to Liz McHutcheon tonight all about what it's like to train, prep both mentally and physically, and execute a fun, unique ultra adventure all on your own. With a lot of travel mixed in there too. That's definitely something that plays a role in this. So we'll talk to Liz about that on tonight's episode of Ginger Runner Live, episode number 256. The episode begins
now.
Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 256. I'm your host, Ethan. And?
I was going to fill in your last name because the way you paused, it was like you'd forgotten what your last name was. What is that last name? Hi, you guys. My name is Kim, and we are live. Yeah. We have an awesome chat room. I was just commenting in the chat room that it's really cool to see everyone's names in there because we are going to see so many of these people in less than 2 weeks, like in person.
Our very first trail race that we are organizing, called Tiger Claw, is coming up in 2 weeks on May 4th. It has been a nonstop roller coaster of excitement, stress, excitement, lack of sleep, stress, and excitement. We're almost there. We're basically less than 2 weeks away from this event. We're very excited about it. It's 22 miles, 8,000 feet of elevation gain. It's a choose your own adventure style race. We're pretty excited about it, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later in tonight's show because our guest, who we'll introduce here in just a second on episode 256, is Liz McHutcheon. Liz is a, I almost just clicked the mouse button and changed everything, so I apologize.
Delete.
Liz is a longtime Ginger Runner viewer, supporter. She's been a part of this community for a long time and just a wonderful, inspiring human being. And she, over the last, we've met her multiple times, and we've sort of known her journey into Ultra and now just kind of through Ultra. And in the last 6 weeks, well, actually in the midst of these 6 weeks, she has taken it upon herself to complete a big project. This project is comprised of 4 Ultra races. 250, well, actually 3 Ultra races, one that is harder than an Ultra, Tiger Claw. 2 50Ks, a 50 miler, and Tiger Claw.
Are we in the midst of the 6 weeks, or it's 6 weeks end to end?
I believe it's 6 weeks. We'll talk to her once we get her, introduce her, but I believe we're in 8 weeks end to end. We're in week 6.
Got it.
So she has run Chuckanut 50K, Lake Sonoma 50 miler, Mendocino 50K, and Tiger Claw's coming up. A lot of miles, a lot of elevation gain, a lot of firsts for her, including that first 50 miler at Lake Sonoma. So we're going to talk to her all about taking on a challenge like this, what it takes both mentally and physically to kind of pick a project and make it really difficult, but taking it on and incorporating all the logistics of travel and everything like that. She's a fantastic human, and I can't wait to find out more about her adventure and how maybe we can all be inspired a little bit from it. But before we do, of course, we have some individuals that we like to thank at the top of every Ginger Runner Live because they are the people who make this show happen week after week, month after month. And those are our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner is where you can become part of the GR crew. For as little as $1 a month, all of our Patreon supporters really do make the lights turn on and the mics stay on. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. 3 individuals in particular at that top tier. Chris Lee from Hong Kong and his organization Trailblazer they do a great job of showcasing all of the Hong Kong trails. If you find yourself going to the region and you want to race or just experience some beautiful trails with incredible views, reach out to Chris and the Trailblazer community or the brick and mortar shop there in town, and you'll be guided to the greatness of the Hong Kong area. Brian Sands has been a longtime supporter, just a wonderful human being with a really inspiring journey with weight loss and running his first marathon, first 50K. He's been in the midst of training for a lot of other ultra races coming up, but he's just an inspiring human, and we've had him on the show before. Really, really great guy. Rick Bjarnason and his team at Cheeky Monkey Media have completely redone the gingerrunner.com website. You can go check it out now. It's beautiful. It's great. That whole team is just super talented. Rick himself, also an ultra runner, training for the Sinister 7 and Fat Dog 120 this summer.
And Tiger Claw.
He will be out at Tiger Claw.
What's really neat, like the 3 people that you just mentioned, we're actually going to be able to see 2 of the 3 people in person.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't go to Hong Kong in the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, we'd see Chris. But we have so many GR crew members and viewers who are going to be joining us at Tiger Claw, either in the racing capacity or the volunteer capacity, which we're so excited about that. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But a reminder, if you're watching live, Kim is in the live chat room. Please drop your questions throughout the episode there, and she'll pull them aside, and we'll be able to ask Liz, our guest. Without further ado, I shall introduce. Yay! Liz McHutcheon, everybody. Hey!
Jet lag. And if your show is getting up there, then I'm getting up there.
It's been, we've been doing this now for over 5 years. We had our 5-year anniversary, which is crazy. How long have you been watching Ginger Runner live? Because I know you've been watching for a really long time. A couple years.
A couple years? Yeah, a couple years. Definitely a couple years. Did my first 50K a year ago. Right. It was the Mendocino 50K. So, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out tonight to sit with us, because I know, Liz, you're on the East Coast. So it's later there. We often have people who jump into the chat room for the first 20 minutes, and it's like, East Coast, you got to go to bed or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the fact you're still up and hanging with us we're very appreciative.
Yeah, I don't do it for anybody. You can ask my family.
We're also really happy to have a guest on that's on this same level as tired as we are. So the show should go off swimmingly.
Delirious minds are the best. It's usually when they're the most honest or when they're the most blunt. And I'm just excited to hear a lot of the stories from your adventures. So let's start here, Liz. What's kind of your running journey? Because I know that, as you mentioned, last year was your first ultra experience. But before then, have you been a lifelong runner? How long have you been running? Where are you in your running journey before you even delved into the ultra world?
I've pretty much been running my whole life, not competitively, but I think I was born running, always moving, always the person in the neighborhood, I'll race you to the stop sign. I'll race you to the top of the hill. I'll race you down the street. I'll race you 6 blocks. And then when I was in high school, I used to run by myself before watches, before you even knew how far you were going.
Before watches? Wait, Liz, before watches?
Before these things.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just a pocket watch.
Yeah, it was an old-timey pocket watch. I'm like, no.
I was like, wait a minute, before watches.
But the smartwatch for sure.
In the land of, what time is it? Oh, it's 2:00. Okay, I'm going to go out now. And then when you came back, okay, I ran for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I did in 9th grade go try out for the basketball team and get on the team, because I wanted to get ready for track. But I don't know why, but I never went out for track. And I probably ran my first real race when I was in my early 20s. It was a 5K. Wow. And I remember the gun going off and me just taking off thinking I'm going to sprint this whole thing and win it. And I remember dying a slow death. I don't even remember what my time was, it was back when in Ohio. I'm from Cleveland. And I just remember loving it, just loving that feeling of, I know it's weird, of suffering, but I'm like, oh, I got to do this again. And how can I get better at it? And I just have kept going. I've had periods of time in my life where I didn't run very much. I ran off and on, probably around having my kids, but I really, really got back into it when my older daughter was in 7th grade and she joined the cross country team. And I remember being on the sidelines like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I just started getting back into it. And then I started training for a marathon. I did do a marathon when I was 28, and the Bay State Marathon here in Massachusetts. And then I didn't do another marathon until I ran Boston in 2017. Yeah.
It's like I'm find myself nodding the head because I feel like that story, it's common. Like a lot of our guests, myself, Kim, we had our running journey sort of be in that 5K range, and then you kind of see what's next, maybe a 10K and maybe a half marathon, that sort of road running addiction. It's so easy to get looped into that and feel the suffering out there and pushing yourself through marathon and stuff like that. When did ultra even cross the mind? Because I know when we first started communicating and when we met each other, it was road running, like marathons in Boston and stuff like that. But when did ultra sort of come into the realm?
Well, it's funny because I ran Boston and it was probably one of the hardest races I've ever done. I got injured from it. I don't even know if I can call it an injury. I just knew that after I ran it, whenever I ran, it hurt. So I had to slowly take it back. And I was also doing Marine Corps Marathon in October that year. And it was the fall. And my coaches from Yogi Triathlete, BJ and Jess, his wife Jess, the yogi in the group, she was going to do the Mendocino 50K. And once she did and then talked about it, I'm like, ooh, that sounds really cool. And I had just we had our older golden Thor, who's now 3, and I was running on trails with him, and I felt like I was a kid again. Like, this is so much fun, jumping over trees and, running downhill and uphill. And I was like, I think I want to do that. But I also remember at the same time telling my husband John, don't worry, I'm never going to run longer than a marathon.
Don't worry.
So never say never. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the next year, which was 2018, right? Where are we now? 2019. Yeah. So November 2017, I signed up to get into the Mendocino 50K and ran my first one in that next April of 2018.
How was that? Because usually, we hear varied stories of people jumping into the ultra distance. There's pain, there's suffering, but there's this new experience that sort of opens up a new door, new possibilities for people. So how was that first 50K for you?
I would say the hardest thing for me is I live on the East Coast, and training for a spring ultra is difficult, but doable. Like, I'm not going to create excuses. There's a way to do it on the treadmill. There's ways to somehow get out there, maybe on the road. I would say the hardest part of doing my first 50K was the climbing. And I came out of that realizing that which is still a little bit of a weakness of mine. I think it's something as an ultra runner, you just keep working on, to be honest. I don't think it's anything you stop working on. I would say the race, first of all, Mendocino is one of the most beautiful races. I highly recommend people do it. It is so beautiful. You run through redwoods, you run through waterfalls, you run along the headlands of the West Coast. Like, it's crazy. You see everything. You even do a rope down this embankment, which to me is like, how fun is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I came out of it in pain, but wanting to do more. So I'm the type of person where what I did is I came home and I'm like, oh, I have to do another one. So I signed up for the North Face 50K near my house. That was 6 weeks later. So I ran another one and more difficult 6 weeks later.
This was 2018, right?
Yes, last year.
So actually, Kim has some questions. I'm sorry. It's
No, you can go ahead.
I realized that you pull so many aside. I'm like, we got to get to those.
Yeah, Liz just mentioned living on the East Coast. We have a couple questions about East Coast versus West Coast. The Gumby Chronicles asked Liz, what are the major differences between racing in the East Coast versus the West?
The biggest difference is the East Coast is all on rock. And I would say the North Face 50K at Mount Wachusett, a lot of it isn't runnable. Like you're actually climbing over big slabs of rock.
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning to just go with the flow and jump from rock to rock. And sometimes when you're summiting Mount Wachusett, you're literally hoisting yourself up on these big giant rocks. So that, yeah, I would say that's the biggest difference is all the rock.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And another question from Brad Clark. Brad says, why the string of West Coast races when living on the East Coast?
That's a good question. I love the West Coast. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe I'm meant to be out there someday. I don't know. If my husband's listening, he's probably upstairs going, no.
No.
But, no. I've lived on the East Coast and I've out here. It's just, I don't know, the trails out there, not that they're not beautiful here. I think I just haven't explored them enough out here. And the races out there just seem, I don't know. I kind of go intuitively with what calls to me. And those are the races that have called to me are the ones that are on the West Coast.
Well, that's actually a great segue, dovetail, if you will, into this project. So one of the things that really excited us was obviously you have run a couple 50Ks at this point, kind of go back into 2018. But it wasn't, when did you come up with this idea? When was this project sort of planted and when did it grow into what it is?
I don't think I realized how close all these races were together.
Don't tell me it was accidental.
And that's the end of the show.
And the show's over. Liz, you are no longer, forget it. Shut it down.
That actually kind of makes me love it even more.
Because you're literally, at that point, you're literally signing up for the races because they're great.
Well, what happened was you did Chuckanut last year, and I'm like, I want to do Chuckanut. So when you could sign up, I signed up for it. And then I'm like, and I wanted to do Mendocino again because Mendocino, it's
gorgeous.
Just beautiful. So I signed up for that one again. And then my coach's wife, Jess, who's also my mindfulness coach, she signed up for Lake Sonoma. I'm like, Lake Sonoma. So I put it on my calendar when the lottery opened, and I'm like, a 50-miler. Because distance is calling to me. I know I'm going to do a 100-miler someday. I don't know which one, but it was just calling to me. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like a really cool one. Plus, it's an out and back, a lot of vertical climbing. I don't know. It just sounded really cool. So I signed up, but I don't think I realized Chuckanut's in March. Then a few weeks later is Lake Sonoma. I did know there was a week in between Lake Sonoma. So I was trying to do a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tiger Claw, I just had to sign up for that one. It's only 22 miles.
How hard could it be?
It's only 22 miles.
That's it. I don't even want to talk about the elevation.
It's a walk in the park.
Don't talk about the elevation.
Just 22 miles. Well, so let's, Brian Sands in the chat room, I think is hilarious. I love the answer. It's an ultra sign up strikes again sort of scenario where you're maybe surfing ultra sign up and going, this race, I want to run this. This race, I want to run this. This one I want to run. They just happen to be all close together. So when did you realize the proximity of races to one another and the potential, not risks, but challenges that are involved with running 4 essentially ultras within a 8-week period?
You know what? I've had moments where it freaked me out a little bit, but I just stayed right where I was. So the first focus was Chuckanut. Get to Chuckanut. And I consider Chuckanut a really great training run because with winter out here this year, we didn't get a ton of snow, but it was enough where things got icy and you couldn't really get on the trails out here. I did try going out to Mount Wachusett a week after I came back home from Chuckanut to do a back-to-back. So have that long run, then do another 6-hour the following weekend. And there was so much snow, we had to turn around and come back. And I actually did loops down the street from my house of the same loop over and over again. So I think I just knew by going out west, I'd be able to get on runnable trail. And I'd get a really good training with some good vertical climbing. I didn't realize that I'd still be running on some snow, but that was fine because
Yep.
I had done it. And it just makes it fun. Like at that stage, it's not like I'm trying to, I don't know. It's just fun. I laugh.
Like that's kind of what I love about it is you didn't look at it as essentially one big wall to overcome, but four smaller walls that you could climb and hurdle. They posed their own challenges, but it wasn't a, here's a 100-foot wall I got to scale. It's here's a
Yeah.
10-foot wall I'll get over. I'll deal with the next one on the other side. I want to talk a little bit about these races then. So Chuckanut, obviously Chuckanut's one of the most uh, gorgeous, beautiful, well-known Pacific Northwest races. It's a Chrissy Mail 50K. It's got a lot of history, a lot of speed, unique challenges in its own right. How was that experience for you showing up to Bellingham, Washington, and experiencing a little bit of this glorious Northwest action?
Well, first I got to meet you guys face to face, which was, and Gus.
Gus, our lovely little pup. Yep.
And then I got to stay with my friend Lee, who we were roommates in Ethiopia. So, and we drove up together. So it was like a road trip. I was so excited to get on the trails. Like I was so excited to just get out there and get on the start line. And the goal of that race was just to go out hard and see what I could do. And that's what I did. And still learning that climbing is something I'm working on. I really need to strengthen my glutes, I think are my biggest downfall still. But fucking chin scraper, man. Or is it called chin scraper?
It is.
I always want to call it chainsaw because that's what it felt like. And I love that they have the camera guy right at the top of that, like as you're coming up and you're trying to get up it. I love the mud. I just think that it's fun. You're running through mud and it's splashing everywhere. I just laugh out loud. I helped a girl get her shoe out of the mud, the snow. And then you turn and I got to see Brian Morrison at the bottom of one of the descents. And then I also got to see David Laney. So I'm like fangirling. But then I turn around and there's more snow and I'm like, oh my God. So then, I don't know, it was beautiful going up to Chuckanut Ridge, seeing Mount Baker. It's Mount Baker, right? I'm saying that correctly,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Was unbelievable.
We pronounce it Baker. That is not true. But
because
yes.
I just take in Mother Nature and take in her power to help me keep moving forward. And I take those moments to stop and really look because it's just amazing. I get to do this. Like I look at it as I get to do this. Yeah, I'm going to suffer. And no matter what I do or eat or how, like there's no formula. You're going to suffer. I just keep moving forward no matter what it looks like. And I actually at Chuckanut got a awesome, I think it was like a 33-minute PR or something like that.
Don't just blow that off. Like the fact that you got a wonderful 50K PR on a course that on paper, the first 10K and last 10K are flat essentially and pretty fast, but that middle 30K has all the climbing. So you're going up climbs like chin scraper.
It's a short amount of time.
Yes. So you're getting like 5,000 feet of gain in a much, much shorter chunk of change. So 30+ minute PR on that is a fantastic accomplishment, especially at the front end of this multi-week project.
And especially for an early year race too.
Yeah, with your training being limited by weather and snow and all that sort of stuff. So that in itself is a fantastic accomplishment. But Liz was not done. Liz was not done with trails, with mountains, because right around the corner was Lake Sonoma. Lake Sonoma 50 miler is very difficult 50 miler, as Kim can attest.
My favorite 50 miler. I love that race so much.
How would you describe it?
I think them, like Lake Sonoma, using the word relentless as their word to describe their race. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
But I don't know. I have such a passion for that race.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love that race. It's relentless. It's difficult. It's up there in difficulty for sure.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts. I think
That
it's Alex
was
Varner.
Alex Varner's. Yeah. I didn't like when you're in that race, thinking about that term is not what you want to be thinking about, though.
No, it's not.
Because you know exactly how many paper cuts there are to go.
Yeah. So Liz, you're off of Chuckanut. You, I'm assuming, recover well enough, or you paced yourself smartly to the point where you were able to get to the Lake Sonoma 50 start line healthy, ready, fit, mentally sound. How did that race play out for you?
So probably as my first 50 miler, like I'm looking back and thinking like, it's just typical of me. Why not pick one of the most difficult races to do? It is definitely one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I believe I told someone I'd rather deliver my children again. Like it was easier to deliver my children.
Kim's face was also really good on that. You got her good.
That's
pause.
extreme.
That is extreme. I don't know, but I like that's a
it was easier. It was easier to deliver my
resume.
children. Yeah.
Good to know.
That's going to be on their website next year. Liz McHutcheon.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So everybody knows who hasn't had kids. Having kids is easier than running Lake Sonoma.
They're going to love that. Sorry. Go.
No, I got to the start line, did everything like I normally do. Was excited. Like I got to meet Io Wang right before she was on the Yogi Triathlete podcast. So I got to talk to her. And then I also got to meet Eric Sensman. What was funny is we were at the Healdsburg Running Company and he was talking to Jess and he's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Eric." And I'm thinking, I know who you are. But he's like, that's what I love about this community is that that's how it's just like, "Oh, hi, I'm Eric." You know, it's not a big deal.
It's kind of like a who's who too, right? I mean,
yes.
Not denying the fact that Lake Sonoma brought a lot of incredible names to the race this year. You're probably at first 50 miler, first time to this race. It's probably like the who's who, right?
Yeah, it was cool. I got to see Jared Hazen go by. I got to see, I'll get to this funny story when they're coming back, but got on the line. I was feeling awesome. It was beautiful out. Absolutely beautiful, sunny day. I took the first part of the race conservative. I wanted to save some for the bigger climbs. So I didn't take that road hard and I just took it. I never went into this thinking about cutoffs or I don't know, or not finishing or anything like that. And as I just remember getting to Warm Springs the first time and thinking that my legs felt more tired than I thought they would, and that the downhills weren't feeling as good as I thought. Like, because Ethan, I've told you before that the downhill's like my thing, but I just kept moving forward. I just kept telling myself, just keep hydrating, keep eating, stay on top of your nutrition, and keep moving forward. I just kept thanking the volunteers, telling everybody how amazing it was, looking at the views. It was unbelievable, and I just kept going. And I remember getting towards mile 18 and you start to see the runners coming back which was really cool. And you're cheering for them and they're telling you how great you're doing.
It's
and
neat,
I'm thinking, I wish I was kind of already turned around.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't even know what was about to come. Like the big climb to No Name. I had no idea what that looked like. And I'm glad that I didn't. So I'm running and I'm focusing and I think I was climbing and I literally, Io and I almost collided and she was in first place she's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, Io, I'm sorry. You look strong." So luckily I didn't take her out.
That would have been like,
you're so focused and running. I had a hat on and then Anna Mae Flynn was right behind her. Or close by, a lot of the women. And then I remember thinking, where's Camille? Like, why haven't I seen Eric? I remember like thinking that. And I'm like, okay, let's focus on your own race. So I kept going. You get to that aid station right at it's around mile 18 or so before you start that climb and then you go down. And I I didn't spend a ton of time at aid stations. That's one thing I've gotten good at. Filled my soft bottles, kept going, started climbing up. Then you descend down. You do a lot of down before you do that huge climb up to No Name. And even then, I never thought I was chasing cutoffs ever. Like I'm still in a little bit of a disbelief what ended up happening, but I know it's the experience I was meant to have. So I kept going, and I saw my coach up at the top before you descend down and start going towards No Name. And then I got to see Bill Yang, big high five. So I was just having fun talking to the runners. We were all cheering each other on. And even not the people coming back, the people I was passing, I was just reminding them to keep moving forward, focus on one step at a time, just keep going and stay hydrated. Don't stop eating. And then you turn this corner and start climbing. And I was like, holy shit. And then it just keeps going and going. So at Mount Wachusett, it's called Jack Frost. And Jack Frost and I don't like each other very much. And it's a crazy short, it's not as long as the climb to No Name, but it's crazy. And it's rock, like there's big rocks, and it's pretty steep and on the edge. And I just remember thinking about Jack Frost climbing up to No Name. And then I just kept climbing. And then I saw Jess come back. She had just done the turnaround. And that some old guy, and I think, Kim, you've told me about him before, the guy that kind of told you that you were close to cut off. I think he was up there, and I was like, cut off? I'm close to cut off? Really? Like, I think I was, so I just kept running, and I ran super strong into No Name. And that's where your drop-off bag, I hurried and got the rest of my gels, filled my bottles, and turned around to leave. And I remember this so distinctly. There was a guy there, and he stopped me, and he said, wait a minute. He had the sponges with the ice water, and he's like, let me put that on. And he looked me in the eye, and he said, I can see that you're focused and determined. You're close to cut off, but I know you can do this. So go do it. And I just turned around and I just took off, and I ran back to that next aid station, which ended up being around mile 33, as fast as I possibly could. And there was a ton of climbing in that too. It was constant. It's like you're going up and then you're going down, then you're going up and then you're going, and there's all these big muddy places you're going. And then I remember thinking at one point that I'm just going to run through this mud. So I run through this mud and my feet go sink down, and I bring them back out and they're just covered in mud. Like it was like an extra 2 pounds. So
California mud.
That made me laugh. And I got to aid station. I saw my coach again, ran down the hill to that aid station, and everybody kept telling me I was fine with cutoffs. Filled my soft bottles, had some Coke, got my ass out of there, and then I just started running to, which would be Warm Springs again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I kept going, and I was passing people. I ended up meeting up with this couple from Lake Tahoe who couldn't believe that this was my first 50 miler. Why did I pick this as I'm like, this is not the time to talk about
I was
this.
like, that's always good.
And they were telling me how they got stuck for 20 minutes because of a rattlesnake.
Oh,
and I didn't even think about rattlesnakes. Like, I was like, rattlesnakes? Oh, shit. So then keep running. And there was a little bit of walking up now, even some of the shorter ups, because my quads were just like fried. And then I heard a rattlesnake. So I just took off as fast as I could.
God.
And went through the water. I loved running through the water. That was my favorite part. Got back. I remember descending down into Warm Springs, flying, ready to take out my soft bottles and get them filled. The woman says, 254, wait a second, Bob wants to talk to you. And there was a guy in front of me, and him and I had been going back and forth leading. And he said, I can't let you go on. You've missed the cutoff. And at that stage, I didn't know how far I'd missed the cutoff. Oh, and before this, my watch had died at 10 hours. So I had no idea what time it was, where I was. I just said to the universe, okay, you're going to have to let me know when I need to fuel. And I just said, keep moving, just keep moving. And when he said it, the tears, because you just run your hardest. And the couple that I'd been running with came over and hugged me. The people are so great. I wasn't the only one. And I just was crying. And I just said, well, it's the farthest I've ever run and the highest I've ever climbed. And that's what I focused on. And I had told my coach at the top, when I came up that hill before descending down to 33, I said to him, he said, get up and fight. Just keep going and get up and fight. And I said, I'm not stopping unless they make me. And that's what happened. So I got as far as Warm Springs at mile 38.
I'm always impressed by anyone who can push and push and push and not give up and still fight cutoffs like this. And this is something that I mentioned to you, and this is the same conversation I had with you, like at Cascade and things like that, is that you didn't quit.
Right.
Anytime you see a DNF where someone misses a cutoff like this, it's you didn't quit. You kept going. And just hearing the story, this is the first time I've heard this story too. It's like, damn, Liz is just pushing the whole time, pushing and running and doing everything you can to get to the next aid station. It was the same way with you at Cascade Crest and like all that. You just push and push and push. And then you just happen to arrive minutes after a cutoff is determined. It's the race telling you that you're done, not your body or your mind. And so it's always a good reminder to know that you didn't quit Lake Sonoma. Lake Sonoma quit you.
And I know they have to do that.
Of course.
It, and it's for safety. And I know that was the experience I was meant to have. I've never DNF'd before. And I think it allows me to use this experience to not only help my adult athletes, but the kids I coach at track and cross country, like that they see that I'm not going to allow this to break me. And I also had to have this mindset in order to go into Mendocino. Otherwise I could have taken that negative. And there were times the ride back to the finish, and the best thing I did was sit at the finish and cheer for everybody. And, but I could have taken all that negative energy into that week, which would have done nothing for me for Mendocino. And my mind had moments where it wanted me to rehash. It wanted me to go and find the 5 minutes that I missed at cutoff. And it wanted me to figure out what I did wrong. But in the end, I didn't do anything wrong. And one thing I realized, well, I'll get to that after Mendocino. I'll get to something that came to me after Mendocino.
Well, I mean, I am curious though, because again, it's not just Lake Sonoma. A lot of athletes can just look at Lake Sonoma as the experience. And if they DNF or if they win or if they don't get their PR or any of that sort of stuff, they can just look at it as a singular experience, learning lesson, and take it on to whenever, wherever they race or run next. You already know your plan. You know that you have Mendocino the next weekend. So you're not going home to the East Coast. You're staying in California. You're going to be there for 7 days. You're going to kind of have to stew on this experience in addition to turn it around into something positive to at least get you to the start line in a mental state that is like, I'm ready to crush this, that sort of thing. How did you do that transition? That's one of the things that I think could be really valuable for those listening is you experience a DNF like this where you do run the furthest, you get the most gain you've ever gotten in a run before, which is amazing and a huge accomplishment. How did you turn that lesson into a positive to get to the start line of Mendocino?
Okay, wait 1 second, because I totally forgot we switched over talking about Lake Sonoma. So let me get to my Lake Sonoma t-shirt. There we go. Now we can really talk about it.
I don't know how many shirts you have on still. If it gets too hot, Liz, we can go to the next race shirt if you need to do that. I love it.
So I meditate every day from 15 to 30 minutes, and I've been doing it for a couple years. I've pretty much been doing it since Boston. And it's not like it, by meditating, it stops thoughts. It just allows me to see the thoughts come now and find that gap in between and decide, am I going to be the victim or not? Because the old me always wanted to be the victim. Oh, make excuses, why I didn't do what I wanted to do, why I didn't get the time I wanted, why I wasn't good enough. And with this race, I was able to, I allowed myself to cry. Like I really let myself cry. I had some good cries over the next probably 24 hours. And I still have moments, like I went for a walk with John and the dogs today where I talk about different parts of the race, but I just allow it. I don't try to push it down. I just let it come when it needs to come. But I also know that whether or not I ran the 50 or the 38, it isn't who I am. And it's not going to make me good enough or not good enough. And by putting the focus on that, I ran the farthest I'd ever done, and I had just done Chuckanut, and the training and everything I've been doing. And I don't know, I just kept focusing on that. Kept focusing on all the fitness I got from Sonoma that was going to carry me into Mendocino. And every time my mind wanted to rehash the race, I said, no, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm not going to rehash this. I had the experience. Focus now is Mendocino. And the focus then became recovery, because I needed to recover in order to be able to line up at Mendocino, because my quads were fried. Right. They were sore. The best thing that happened was a friend of BJ and Jess brought us compression boots. I pretty much got in those for 2 or 3 times a day, which really helped too. And just making sure I was eating all the good foods, drinking green smoothies, all that kind of stuff, giving my body what it needed to move forward to that next race. So then it became, because I just keep moving forward. So,
I mean, I love that. The simplicity of it, and I think the complexity of it as well, because it's so easy to say, just move forward. It's so easy to just I can sit here and tell my mind, just think about the next thing and keep moving forward. But to see it in practice and to see it actually work is a testament to its ability to work, as long as you can focus on it and let it be a truth, I guess. And Mendocino was this last Saturday, a couple days ago. And so this is all still very fresh. I want to remind everyone that this didn't take place months and months ago. We're in the midst of it.
No, I'm still sore.
Yeah, like Liz is probably, she's probably trying to fall asliep. We're keeping her up. It's super late.
She's doing pretty well right now.
You're on it. Like, no coffee needed. Liz is crushing. But it, like, Lake Sonoma was 2 Saturdays ago. Mendocino was this last Saturday. So this, what Liz is talking about, all just occurred last week. This sort of recalibration and attention to the Mendocino race. So how did you approach Mendocino then? Come Thursday, Friday, you're prepping for this 50K. You're going to run another 31 miles out there, a lot of elevation gain. How did you prepare yourself? And
right, Mendocino. Let's switch over. Here we go.
So brilliant, and I love it. How did it play out for you?
So my BJ, my coach, it was all about recovery. So I left Lake Sonoma Monday morning, drove back down to San Francisco because my daughter and 2 of her friends were meeting me there to come up to Mendocino to cheer for me there. And she had never seen me do an ultra before. So, awesome. And one of her friends is also one of my track athletes. So with Anna. And so it was all about rest and recovery. So that first day I drove down to San Francisco, did a little bit of walking just to keep the legs moving, which it helps the more you move around. I think people a lot of times think you need to sit all the time, but it really helps to walk around because it just keeps things moving. You guys know that. So then Tuesday morning, the goal was to go for 30 minutes, and I ran to a place called Land's End. And yeah, do you know, yeah, it's
Beautiful.
pretty cool because you
Mhm.
can end up seeing the Golden Gate Bridge, which is pretty awesome. It was a beautiful morning, but where I was, the Airbnb I was staying at was literally on a hill like this. So I had to go out and start walking uphill before I took the left to go to
1,000
Land's
feet
End.
of gain. No big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. But was to walk 4 minutes and then jog easy 1 minute. And I remember my mind wanting to be like, you can't do it. You can't do it. But
Mm.
since I've been meditating, I always bring myself back to the present moment and my breath right there and just start walking. So I started walking. And when I got to the minute of run, I said, okay, just see how it feels. So I started running, and I'll be honest, those first couple jogs looked probably pretty crazy. I don't know what I looked like, but the longer I was out there, the better I felt. So because our mind wants to tell us like your quads hurt, your this hurts, no. Like, no, you can actually move through that. You're not going to die. And so so that's what I did. And then I had to, pick up the girls. And then we ended up doing a lot of walking, which I think really helped.
Sure.
And then we went up to Mendocino, and the rest of the time was about walking. And I didn't really run until the day before Mendocino. We did a 30-minute shakeout with some of the other yogi triathlete athletes, and I actually felt really good. And I'd been doing the compression boots. I continued to roll out, stayed on top of my hydration, eating all the food. I'd have to say one of the hardest things for me about doing back to back is carbo loading again. Like, I'm like, oh, I gotta eat pasta again. And
I don't have a problem. I'm like, that is not a problem for me.
Yeah, no, I have to eat pasta again at every meal and for
thank
breakfast.
you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Wait till Tiger Claw. We'll make sure we'll eat all your carbs that you don't eat at the race. It's fine.
So the goal for that race was just to go hard, see what you could do. And I wanted to see if I could PR either the 50K or PR the course. And I took off. First of all, it was perfect out. And it's such a beautiful course. And the people are so awesome that that first 10 miles is like up a little bit of up and down, falls flat. So I just went out hard, ran through the first aid station, filled my bottles. I did a little bit different with nutrition. I found that what I was realizing is I was fueling out of fear at a lot of my races, like afraid I was going to bonk, afraid I wasn't going to eat enough. Oh, if I eat a gel every 20 minutes, it's not going to hurt. I'm not going to suffer, which is a bunch of bullshit. It just is what it is. And so I said at Mendocino, I'm going to listen to what my body is asking for. So I went with liquid calories the first hour and drank 2 soft bottles of Goo Roctane. And that really, I found it takes a lot of energy for me to eat while I'm running an ultra. So taking in liquid was so much easier for me. And that's what I continue to do. I probably only ended up taking in 5 gels that whole time. And I think I went to one aid station where I took in 2 halves of peanut butter and jelly. So I went out hard. You hit that first climb. You go past the second aid station, and I was feeling really good. And I just was like really focusing on strong power hiking. And same thing. I felt really good. I felt my legs. Oh, and the other different thing I did too with this one is I was taking the BCAA capsules, the amino acids, every hour to see how my body would react to it. And I think they helped. I don't know. I still, all I know is I left it out on that course, and I went until my body was almost ready to say I can't give anymore. And normally I allow a little bit left in the tank to sprint to the finish, but I said, no, you're leaving it all out there. And I just kept looking when I was hurting and suffering, and my legs were like, we can't possibly take another step. I just would look at the view. And I remember running along the headlands at the stage. You have like a couple miles left. And it was so windy. It was like 25 miles per hour. And I was almost being knocked off my feet. Like, it was comical. So I was just laughing out loud. And I just kept saying to Mother Nature, give me some of that power. Give me some of that power to push me forward. And that's what I kept going. And I just remember cheering for the people I was passing and giving them words of encouragement and just taking in the whole experience and knowing that when my daughter was going to get to see me finish, and I got to see her at 2 aid stations. And and I ended up with a course PR of like 11 minutes, which I'll take it.
I love it because I think this was the crucial week in I mean, obviously Kim and I were following your adventures for many weeks now, from Chuckanut and seeing you race at Chuckanut to Lake Sonoma and then to Mendocino. But we were really curious of just that back-to-back, that 50-miler, 50K a week apart. I mean, I've done a 50-50 and it's rough. It's rough to try to put those two events back to back, especially with pushing as hard as you can to meet cutoffs and then pushing for like PRs and stuff like that. You dig about as deep as you could possibly dig. So to hear you kind of retell that and hear the lessons that you learned just in a short amount of time, but were able to sort of shift the mindset from negatives to positives. We talk about it so much on the show of how to switch those things up. I feel like ultra runners inevitably will reach a low in an ultra, in life, in their training, in their series of races. And to shift that to a positive, we talk about it, but we don't actually find out how or why they did, or like, how did they dig themselves out, right? Like sometimes they're like, oh, I just took time and just focus on the positive and stuff. But this was a really great explanation of how you did that in real time days ago. And you crushed it. You crushed Mendocino. I say crushed a lot. I realize that, but
that should be the drinking game word.
Oh my God, it's going to be. It's to give weight to the awesomeness that you accomplished this last weekend, finishing Mendocino with a personal course record of 11 minutes faster than you ran it the year previous, your first 50K, correct?
Yep. So this was my fourth 50K in a year. And I want to tell you, I did think of you on the course thinking like, how did Ethan do the 50-50 a day, like the next day? I was thinking about that. But see, that's just my mind saying, oh, it's trying to give me excuses on why I can't do it. So like that is one of my goals, is to do the 50-50.
I think it's realistically, it's completely doable for anyone who's ever run an ultra. I mean, I'm sure there's people who could never run an ultra and then go do a 50-50 and make it look easy, but it was a test of the mind, 1,000%.
Just like waking up and getting to the start line.
That was it. That was the biggest challenge.
You're not just going to stand at the start line when everybody else runs away.
No, you just got to get there.
You're just standing there.
Bye. I got here. I don't want to run this now.
I think that was just like the biggest thing. And you hear people are doing things like the 50-50 of like, you just got to get to the start line.
It's the easiest thing to say. It's the hardest thing to do. You got to the start line. You finished. You got a new PR. It's fantastic to hear this story. And it's not over yet. That's kind of the fun part, is that Liz is just getting started. She's back home. She gets to spend some time with her family and her pups, but she's going to be joining us here back in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest for Tiger Claw in less than 2 weeks.
Correct.
And we'll report back on what happens there. Any questions from the chat room before we move towards the end of the show here?
Yeah, there was a good question from Thomas from earlier in the show, and Thomas wanted to know, who inspires you as a runner?
Oh gosh. Wow, that's a good question. Who inspires me as a runner? Probably my kids. Like I've seen both of them suffer running their races. I would like to say there's like I love all the elites. Really, what running is to me is I just want to see where my end is. And I'm not even close to getting there. I think that's what inspires me to keep going and doing these crazy things where it's only 2 weeks away or 7 weeks away, or like, well, let's just see. Because one of the things that came to me the night after I ran Mendo was, and I had to get up and write it down, was I realized even on the course at Mendo, because I had moments of, I only ran 38 miles. Why am I sore? Like, why am I sore? I didn't finish. Or, and again, the mind wanting to go there. But I realized I was looking for but I only missed the cutoff by 5 minutes. The ego wanting to be like, oh, and I got that course PR. And I realized it doesn't matter what the fucking clock says. I'm good enough for showing up on that start line and running every step I've run in these last 3 races. It doesn't matter if I got a PR. It doesn't matter what it looked like. It matters the information I gathered, what I learned, and that I did it.
I love it. I hate being the one to ask this, but I would love for you to remind the audience also of how old you are, because this is something that I think is amazing.
I'm 22 now.
Yeah, why are you asking? She's 22.
22. I'm sorry.
I still get carded.
There you go.
I'm 52.
I think that is one of the coolest things ever. Liz is just getting started at Ultra and crushing these distances like they're nothing. There is no excuse, for people to not consider challenging themselves. No distance too far, nothing. Liz, you continue to inspire both Kim and myself. We were blessed to have you as a friend and know you and to follow along with these adventures. It's really, really awesome. For those watching live or maybe listening to the podcast, can you just let people know where they can find you on social media and stuff like that? So if any questions still remain, they can reach out, follow you, and follow along for Tiger Claw too.
Best place to find me is Instagram. It's my favorite place. I love pictures at Running on Venti. And I'm on Facebook. I spend a little bit of time on Twitter. I try Twitter. I'm just not funny enough, I think. And then on my website, runningonventi.com.
We have a little thing here that we like to do with all of our first-time guests called the Quickie Question Quiz.
This is
Liz,
my favorite thing I've been waiting for.
Liz gets to hear it every week with our guests, first-timers, and now Liz gets to actually participate.
Have you been practicing, Liz?
A little bit, I have to say. I told my husband one of the questions. I said, "What do you think I'm going to answer?" And he totally got it. So anyway, go ahead.
We got to create an app that people can download and practice with it.
Before you dive in, there's just a comment from Brad Clark in the chat room. Brad says, "Yay, Liz. I ran my first 50K last year at age of 48.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Congratulations.
So here's how this works. The Quickie Question Quiz is quite simple. We do it with all first-time guests. It's a series of 9 to 28 questions. I haven't fully counted yet. Less than 100 questions. You just got to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. When you give me a thumbs up, we will begin. What was your very first race?
It was a 5K in Cleveland when I was probably around 25.
Favorite place to run currently?
The West Coast.
Road or trails?
Oh, trails.
Bucket list race?
Western States.
Favorite running movie?
Oh, I didn't practice this one. The one with the, you know what? It's funny is there's not enough movies about women, I've noticed. But if I have to pick a movie, it would be, it would actually be you and Billy Yang's movies. Like, I would say those are my favorites.
That's the correct answer. Guilty pleasure TV show.
My what?
Guilty pleasure TV show.
Oh, Friends.
Oh, I don't think we've had that.
I love Friends.
Are you I was going to try to say, are you a Monica? Then I can only remember the actresses' names. Cool.
So,
Good job. That's great job, me.
Rachel Phoebe.
Thank you. Rachel, Phoebe, Monica, Chandler, Ross.
Joey.
Totally. Yeah, or Joey.
A little bit. I'm probably a little more Monica. Like, I used to have that type A really in me, but I probably have a little more of Rachel and Phoebe in me now.
Whoa. Favorite pre-race meal?
Oh, all the pancakes I get to eat.
Ooh. Favorite post-race indulgence?
Oh, a glass of wine, Sauvignon Blanc, like from New Zealand or something, like a Whitehaven or something.
And finally, current running kicks, or what are you running all your races in?
Oh, the Speed Goats. I tried the Torrents, and I love how light they are, but they don't give enough support to my plant, like my arch, because I have pretty flat feet. So I love the speed goats. And actually, I had to go get a new pair in between Sonoma and Mendo because mine were so trashed from Sonoma. And it was time for them to move on. So I found an REI on the way back down to San Francisco.
That's funny. That's probably the same REI that I bought.
But also after Lake Sonoma last year, my shoes went into the garbage
Into
can.
the garbage. Yes. Those were terrible. They were so muddy. That was like mud that was permanent.
Oh, and I even
yeah, you passed the test.
my hydration vest. It ripped. It didn't make it.
Got to get rid of it.
I could need a new one for Tiger Claw.
I was gonna ask, what shoe do you have your shoes picked out for Tiger Claw?
Oh yeah, the Speed Goats.
Speed Goats also.
Good choice.
Oh, yeah.
Those will help with the descent for sure. Yeah, perfect shoe for that. Congratulations, Liz. You passed the quickie question quiz.
Yay!
Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's show, Liz. It's just wonderful to actually hear a bit more play-by-play over the last few weeks. And again, those who are watching live, go follow Liz and be able to follow along a little bit during Tiger Claw. We are going to have Liz join us for a little bit of the after show. So if you are a Patreon supporter, please jump over there, patreon.com/thegingerrunner. Liz will be joining us in just a couple of seconds, and we'll be able to ask a lot more questions regarding those races, any questions that didn't get asked during this main show. But then also, we're going to talk a little bit maybe about her trip to Ethiopia, which also occurred this year.
Yeah.
She did a really wonderful trip to Ethiopia, running with some fantastic people for a great cause. So maybe we'll talk to Liz a little bit about that in the after show. Regardless, go ahead, Liz.
I just want to say that you guys inspire me, and I love your show, and I'm so glad to know you both, really. So I know you said I inspire you. You guys inspire me. And like, really, Kim, that you finished that course 2 times. Awesome. Like, and I'm going back. I saw Skip at Mendo, and I said, I am going back and getting that race.
I'll see you at the start line next year.
Oh, awesome.
And maybe Ethan might be there also for the first time.
All right.
I have yet to run the whole course.
I just signed you up.
Is that what happened?
Yes.
Dang it. I got to train for it.
I had the word. I wished that I was there running so badly this year, and I think I'll probably try and get in again next year.
Tiger Claw logistics will be more tightened up next year since this is a first year race, obviously. But next year, hopefully things will be a little bit smoother. I think you forgot that they were so close.
Yes.
But we'll hopefully both be at Lake Sonoma 50 next year. Well, you're definitely going to be there.
I would love to run it again. Yes.
I'll definitely run it. Why not? It's been years. Got to do it. So thank you, Liz, for joining us on the main show. Liz is going to join us in the after show for sure. Go ahead.
And before we leave the main show, next Monday, we are going to be taking one show off because it is the week of Tiger Claw. We know that based off of the last 6 weeks, time is very limited. So we want to make sure that next week we focus all of our attention on making sure our race is perfect. So we will be taking a bye week next Monday. No Ginger Runner Live, but we will be returning the following Monday with a full Tiger Claw recap with guests. Many, perhaps. Who knows? It should be a really fun episode. I imagine we'll be getting quite loopy on air. We could have a real tiger on air.
We could,
right?
God, no, but that's still locked in the closet. It's very hungry. Before we end the show, every week now, we like to recognize GR crew members of the week. These are members who are doing incredible things and inspiring others and helping others along the way in their own journeys. They are people who support this show through viewership or on Patreon or whatever. We just like to recognize members of the community. This week we're bringing on someone who has been GR crew member of the week before, but it is because of a very good reason. 2 individuals, in fact. Our good friends Darren and Austin Burris, who are helping us with some of the most intense race direction details that we ever anticipated. They are taking on so much of this event onto themselves. They're volunteering their time. We cannot thank them enough. They are members of this community who reached out and have just offered all of their time to help make this thing happen.
And I mean, all of their time.
It's amazing. We've had multiple meetings every single week that last what we anticipate to be like an hour or 2 have turned into 5, 6, 7 hour long meetings and like tying ribbons and it's been amazing to have them on board with this event. So as we take a bye next week, we thought it would be appropriate to recognize just how special this community is and the members within it who sacrifice.
sorry.
No, that's it.
So I highly recommend anybody coming out to Tiger Claw, whether you're volunteering or racing. You will see Darren at the top aid station. Make sure you give him a big high five and a thank you. And
Yes.
Austin will be down at the lower area with us. If you're volunteering, you definitely will be seeing Austin. So make sure to give her a high five too.
Yeah, they're very, very important people to this event, and they are making it
They're making
amazing.
it happen with
Yeah,
us.
making it
Yeah.
happen. So big shout out to them and to all of our GR crew members who are going to be at Tiger Claw. We will see you in a matter of days at this point, less than 2 weeks. We're very excited about that. I know. Every time I say it, it's like, wait, what? So it's just exciting stuff that's going on right now in the GR community, and we get to share it with everybody. So it's a pretty fun experience. Thank you everyone for tuning into Ginger Runner Live, episode number 256. You are a fantastic audience that comes back every single Monday to spend a little bit of that time, your valuable time, with us. And we really very much appreciate that. We're going to move right into the after show with our wonderful guest, Liz McHutcheon. If you are a Patreon supporter, we'll see you in just a couple of seconds. If you are not, consider it. Patreon.com/gingerrunner. That's it. Am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Me neither. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and part of the hardest. I know I am. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Ginger